Hey there! Welcome to the deep dive, where we help you cut through the clutter and get straight to the good stuff.
Absolutely.
Today, we're diving into a book
Right.
that promises to help us all become better writers um, in the humanities.
Sounds good.
It's called The Elements of Academic Style by Eric Hayot.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Now, you might be thinking,
Okay.
isn't it a little ironic to analyze a book about writing
Right.
by talking?
Certainly a unique approach,
Yeah.
but that's what makes this deep dive so intriguing.
Okay.
Hayot's book isn't just like a dry textbook.
Yeah.
It's a vibrant exploration of how the very act of writing shapes our thinking.
Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it.
Yeah.
Hayot argues that writing is learning.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever felt like you only truly understand a concept
Oh, yeah, for sure.
once you start trying to explain it to someone else?
Absolutely. Hayot suggests that too often we treat writing as like a mere transcription of already formed thoughts.
Right.
But in reality, our ideas kind of take shape on the page,
Yeah.
evolving through the process of articulating them.
Oh, interesting.
He even says you cannot know what your ideas are,
Mm-hmm.
mean, or do
Right.
until you set them down in sentences.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I find that my best ideas often emerge while,
Yeah.
I'm wrestling with a sentence or trying to explain a complex concept in a clear way.
For sure.
It's almost like thinking out loud, but with,
Yeah.
more eloquent punctuation.
Precisely.
Right.
And Hayot offers a fantastic tool
Okay.
to help us think through this process more effectively.
Yeah.
It's called the uneven U model for structuring paragraphs
Interesting.
and even like entire sections.
This uneven use sounds intriguing. What's the big idea?
Imagine a U shape.
Okay.
You start with a broad statement,
Mm-hmm.
introducing the main idea. Then you dive into the specifics, the evidence,
Yeah.
the close readings,
Uh-huh.
the nitty-gritty of your argument.
Yeah.
Finally, you broaden back out,
Okay.
connecting your analysis back to the larger significance.
Oh, I see.
Think of it as creating a clear roadmap for your reader.
Okay, I think I get it.
Yeah.
But can you give me like a concrete example?
Sure.
Like, how would I use the uneven U to, say, restructure a paragraph for my own work?
Certainly.
Okay.
Let's take a look at that paragraph you sent us about.
Oh, right. The one where I try to explain the
Yeah.
influence of postmodernism on contemporary art.
Mhm.
It always felt a bit clunky.
Well, let's see how we can give it a smoother flow
Okay.
using the uneven U.
Right.
You begin by stating that postmodernism has had a profound influence on contemporary art.
Mm-hmm.
That's your broad opening.
Okay.
Then you jump straight into a very specific example, the work of artist Cindy Sherman.
Yeah.
But before discussing Sherman, wouldn't it be helpful to provide some context about the key characteristics of postmodernism itself
Right.
that would create a natural transition and lead the reader
Yeah.
more smoothly into your analysis of Sherman's work?
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I can see how providing that middle section of the U
Right.
would give my reader a better foundation for understanding the connection between postmodernism and Sherman's art.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, after analyzing Sherman's work,
Mm-hmm.
you can zoom back out to that broader point
Right.
about postmodernism's influence,
Yeah.
perhaps even suggesting other artists or movements that exemplify this trend.
Okay.
This creates that satisfying sense of closure
Yeah.
and leaves the reader with a clearer understanding of the broader implications of your analysis.
Wow, that's incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
I can already see how the uneven U could transform my writing. It's like you've given me a secret weapon.
And remember, the uneven U isn't a rigid formula. It's more of a guiding principle.
Oh, okay.
You can adapt it to suit your own style
Right.
and the specific demands of your topic.
That's reassuring. It's all about finding what works best for
Yeah,
both you and your reader.
exactly.
Now, Hayot also talks about something called the iceberg theory of knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear more about that. It
Yeah.
sounds a bit mysterious.
It's a compelling metaphor for showcasing expertise without overwhelming your reader.
Okay.
Imagine an iceberg.
Yeah.
What we see above the surface is the explicit information in your writing,
Right.
the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
But beneath the surface lies a vast body of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
all the research and background reading that informs your work.
So it's like saying there's a lot more going on
Yes.
exactly beneath the surface of our writing
Yeah.
than what we explicitly state.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
But how do we decide how much of that iceberg To reveal.
That's where strategy comes in.
Oh, okay.
You need to reveal enough to establish your authority and credibility, but not so much that you bog down your argument with unnecessary details.
So it's a tricky balance.
Think of it this way.
Okay.
If you're writing about how Marxist theory applies to modern-day social media,
Right.
you wouldn't need to explain the entire history of Marxism to your reader.
Right.
You can assume a certain level of background knowledge
Yeah.
and focus on the specific aspects of Marx's work that are relevant to your argument.
That makes sense. It's like you said earlier about the and even you.
Right.
You have to find that sweet spot between diving deep into the specifics and zooming back out to the broader significance.
For sure.
You're constantly guiding the reader, making sure they have enough information to follow your argument without getting lost in unnecessary details.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this brings us to Hayot's approach to quotations.
Oh, quotations.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I sometimes struggle with how to use them effectively.
Okay.
It's like, do I just sprinkle them in like confetti? Or is there a more strategic way?
Hayot sees quotations as much more than just, proof that you've done your reading.
Right.
He argues that they should be carefully chosen tools to shape and strengthen your argument.
So it's not enough to just find a quote that vaguely supports your point?
Not at all.
Okay.
You need to think strategically about how each quote functions within your overall argument. For example, a partial quote can be seamlessly woven into your own sentences, creating a sense of flow and integration.
Whereas a full quote set apart in a block would really draw attention to the source material.
Exactly.
Okay.
It allows the source to speak for itself, adding weight and authority to your analysis.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hayot even suggests that sometimes, anonymous citations can be incredibly powerful.
Anonymous citations.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of counterintuitive. Why would you not want to give credit where credit is due?
Well, there are times when attributing a quote to a specific source might actually distract from your main point.
Oh.
An anonymous citation allows you to invoke a broader idea or concept without getting bogged down in scholarly debates or lengthy explanations.
I see. So you might use an anonymous citation if you want to emphasize a common idea or assumption within a particular field of study without necessarily attributing it to a single author.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this strategic use of quotations ties back to the iceberg theory we discussed earlier. It's all about making choices that reveal just the right amount of information to guide the reader toward your desired conclusion.
It's fascinating how all these concepts are like interconnected.
Yeah.
Hayot isn't just giving us a random assortment of writing tips. He's offering a whole new way of thinking about the craft itself.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of interconnectedness, let's talk about how Hayot approaches the structure of entire books.
Okay.
This is where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how academics decide how to organize their ideas into a book-length project. Is it just a matter of stringing together a bunch of articles?
Hayot would argue that a book is a unique genre, distinct from a mere collection of chapters.
Right.
He emphasizes the importance of thinking about the overall architecture of the book, the way the chapters connect and build upon each other to create a coherent and compelling whole.
So it's like you're building a house, not just piling up a bunch of bricks.
Exactly. You need to create a blueprint, a plan for how each chapter contributes to the larger argument.
Yeah.
And genuinely small details like chapter length can play a role.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, Hayot points out that there are unwritten conventions within different fields. For example, in literature and cultural studies, 5 or 6 chapters seems to be the norm for first books.
It makes you wonder how these conventions emerged, doesn't it? Who decided that 5 or 6 chapters was the magic number?
It's fascinating to consider how these unspoken rules shape our expectations as both writers and readers.
Right.
And speaking of expectations,
Yeah.
let's talk about introductions.
Okay.
Hayot has some strong opinions about how to craft an effective opening.
Oh, introductions. I have to admit, I sometimes get stuck in that formulaic mode of spelling out every single point I'm going to make.
That's a common trap.
Yeah.
Hayot encourages a more nuanced approach.
Okay.
One that leverages the power of anticipation and surprise.
Oh, interesting.
He argues against giving away all the good stuff right at the beginning.
So instead of laying out my entire argument in the introduction, I should think of it more as an invitation, drawing the reader in with intriguing questions.
Precisely. Think of it as setting the stage for your intellectual performance,
Right.
piquing the reader's curiosity and making them want to delve deeper into your ideas.
That's a much more exciting way to think about introductions.
Yeah.
And this idea of guiding the reader also applies to transitions, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hayot breaks down different types of transitions,
Okay.
like those that extend an idea, those that summarize, and those that signal a shift in focus.
Right.
Each type plays a specific role in guiding the reader
Yeah.
through the twists and turns of your argument.
Okay.
He even offers a specific tip about transitions between paragraphs.
Oh, what's that?
He suggests transitioning at the beginning of a new paragraph
Okay.
rather than at the end of the previous one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So instead of tacking on a transitional sentence at the end of a paragraph,
Right.
I should start the new paragraph with a sentence that clearly links back to the previous idea while also introducing the new point.
Exactly.
Okay.
This creates a cleaner break and a stronger sense of forward momentum.
It's like you're constantly guiding the reader, saying,
Right.
okay, we've explored this idea thoroughly.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the next exciting insight. And speaking of exciting insights, what about conclusions?
Oh, conclusions.
How does Hayot approach the art of ending an essay or a book chapter?
Conclusions are crucial.
Yeah.
They're your last chance to leave a lasting impression on the reader. Hayot, of course, has some strong opinions about what makes for an effective closing.
I bet he hates those conclusions that just rehash everything you've already said.
You read his mind.
Yeah.
He compares that kind of conclusion to a symphony that ends with a dull thud instead of a soaring crescendo.
Ouch. So what does he suggest instead?
He encourages us to aim for conclusions that offer a new perspective,
Okay.
a provocative thought, something that lingers in the reader's mind long after they finish the last page.
Yeah.
The conclusion should be the culmination of your intellectual journey,
Okay.
the moment where all the threads of your argument weave together into a tapestry of insight.
It's like you're not just summarizing your argument.
Right.
You're taking it to a whole new level, leaving the reader with something to ponder.
Precisely.
Right.
And all of this careful crafting, from introductions to transitions to conclusions, ultimately serves to elevate the impact of your writing.
It makes you realize that every sentence, every paragraph, every chapter plays a role in creating that overall effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of creating an effect, let's talk about titles.
Okay.
Hayot even dissects the anatomy of a good title,
Interesting.
arguing that the most common format in the humanities is evocative, opaque title, followed by a descriptive, thematic subtitle.
It's like a secret code for academics.
Right.
The title sparks curiosity, while the subtitle provides just enough information to let readers know what they're getting into.
It's a delicate balance.
Right.
You want to intrigue your reader without being too obscure or misleading.
So it's not just about choosing a catchy phrase. It's about crafting a title that accurately reflects the scope and ambition of your work.
Exactly.
Right.
And remember, the title is the first thing a potential reader sees.
Yeah.
It's your first chance to make an impression.
It's like the cover of a book. You want it to be eye-catching and enticing, but you also want it to accurately represent what's inside.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And just as a book cover can hint at the treasures within, a well-crafted title can pique the reader's curiosity and draw them into the world of your ideas.
Okay, so now let's move on to the more technical aspects of writing.
Okay.
Hayot doesn't shy away from getting into the nitty-gritty of how to use quotations effectively.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
We touched on this briefly earlier, but I'm eager to dive deeper into the nuances.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hayot goes beyond the basics of avoiding plagiarism.
Right.
And explores how quotations can be woven into your prose to create a tapestry of voices and perspectives.
So it's not just about finding a quote that supports your point.
Right.
It's about creating a dialogue between your voice and the voices of your sources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think of quotations as carefully chosen threads that add texture and depth to the fabric of your writing.
And Hayot emphasizes the importance of choosing the right type of quotation for each situation. Block quotes, full quotes, partial quotes.
Yeah.
They all have their specific purposes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
A block quote, for example, might be appropriate when you want to emphasize a particularly striking passage or allow a source to speak at length.
Whereas a partial quote would be more seamlessly integrated into your own sentence structure.
Precisely.
Okay.
And then there's the question of anonymous citations, what we touched on earlier. Remember,
Yeah.
sometimes you want to invoke an idea or concept
Right.
without explicitly naming the source.
Right. Like when you're referring to a commonly held belief
Yeah.
or assumption
Yeah.
within a particular field of study.
It's a way of acknowledging intellectual lineage without disrupting the flow of your own argument.
Okay, now let's move on to a topic that often sparks debate in academic circles.
Okay.
Jargon.
Jargon.
The bane of many a reader's existence.
Right.
Where does Hayot stand on this often contentious issue?
Well, Hayot acknowledges that jargon can be a problem.
Yeah.
Especially when it's used to obscure meaning or create an illusion of expertise.
Yeah.
However, he doesn't advocate for abandoning specialized language altogether.
Okay.
Instead, he encourages us to be more mindful about our choices,
Right.
using jargon only when it's truly necessary,
Okay.
and always striving for clarity and precision.
It's like finding that balance.
Exactly.
Right.
Hayot sees jargon as a symptom of, like, a deeper issue,
Okay.
a lack of clear thinking.
Oh, interesting.
When we rely on overused or imprecise terms, we risk obscuring our own ideas.
It's like we're hiding behind those big words instead of really grappling with the complexity of our subject.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The challenge is to find language that is both precise and accessible,
Okay.
conveying the nuance of your ideas without alienating your reader.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Instead of relying on those tired academic buzzwords,
Right.
we need to push ourselves to find fresh, evocative language that truly captures the essence of our thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means simplifying our language, using clear, concise terms that are easy for any reader to understand.
You know, I've been trying to pay more attention to the language I use in my own writing.
Yeah.
I've noticed that when I get stuck in a jargon rut, it's usually because I haven't fully thought through my argument.
That's a great insight.
Yeah.
The struggle to find the right words
Right.
can actually be a powerful tool for refining our thinking.
It forces you to slow down and really consider the nuances of what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Okay, and speaking of slowing down,
Yeah.
Hayot also emphasizes the importance of creating space for the reader to breathe.
Oh, okay.
He even uses this cool term,
Okay.
ventilation.
Ventilation is all about avoiding dense, suffocating prose.
Right.
It's about creating a rhythm in your writing.
Yeah.
A balance between complex sentences and shorter, more impactful ones.
It's like giving your reader a chance to pause and absorb the full weight of your ideas to really savor the experience of reading.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about crafting prose that feels fresh and invigorating, prose that invites the reader to linger and appreciate the beauty of language itself.
And this brings us to one of the most profound insights from Hayot's book.
Yeah.
The idea that becoming a better writer means becoming a different kind of writer.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not just about mastering a set of rules or techniques.
Right.
It's about developing your own unique voice, your own signature style.
Hayot encourages us to experiment, to break free from the confines of academic convention and explore the full range of possibilities within our chosen genres.
Exactly.
That's so liberating. It's like saying we don't have to sound like everyone else.
Right.
We can find our own way of expressing our ideas, our own way of engaging with the world through writing.
He challenges us to embrace the idea that writing is an ongoing process of discovery and transformation.
Right.
A journey that leads us ever closer to the heart of our intellectual passions.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
Yes.
I feel like Hayot has given us so much to think about.
Yeah.
So many new tools and strategies to experiment with in our own writing.
Absolutely.
So to our listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this challenge.
Okay.
How can you experiment with new styles and techniques to develop your own unique writing voice?
That's a great question.
What steps can you take today to break free from those old habits and explore the full potential of your writing?
Keep writing, keep experimenting, and keep that sense of curiosity alive. And if you ever feel lost or discouraged, remember Hayot's wise words.
Okay.
The work begins in the workshop. It moves into the world, back to the workshop, then into the world, and back again.
Wow.
It's a continuous cycle of creation, feedback, and refinement.
Right.
Embrace the journey and enjoy the process of discovering your own unique voice.
That's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Eric Hayot's The Elements of Academic Style.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it as inspiring and insightful as we have.